Friends, we are now going to move into a conversation with Reverend Matt Lacey from the SEJ-UMVIM. And so, Matt, if you will meet me here at the table, I look forward to dialoguing with you. It is good to see you. And so, would you explain to this group the difference in the work that you do and the work that Paulette West does, because she was with us yesterday and we were talking about the same subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paulette is the North Alabama UMVIM coordinator. So her job is to relate to this conference as far as the work of UMVIM. And my position is one which covers the entire jurisdiction. And so my office relates to each of the annual conferences in the Southeast to encourage, equip, and resource church members to get out the doors of their church and engage in mission. Okay.
And so you've been doing this how long?
So I've been doing this 7 years, but UMVIM's been around since the late 70s because United Methodist in the pews, lay people, were anxious to get out the doors and engage with people around the world in mission. So I've only been doing this a short time, but UMVIM has a very rich history here in the Southeast.
Yes. So you do this for the entire Southeast.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
I live in Birmingham, actually. And so my office is now at home, which is very convenient. I have a lovely assistant, which is a year-old Boston Terrier puppy. She answers the phone sometimes, which can be confusing. But Katie and I live in Birmingham.
How many languages does she speak?
At least 3 that I know of, maybe more.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet her sometime. In fact, that would be a nice gift.
There you go. Well, let me check with Katie. No? Yeah.
Maybe not, yeah. I'm kidding. Okay. What is the first step your organization takes in raising the evangelistic temperature in situations?
Yeah, so I think I guess I'm not alone. I know sometimes when I think about evangelism, I really have to think twice about using that word. There's a lot of weight that comes with that word, evangelism. And for some, it can be a pejorative term. And I think in terms of mission and engaging with people around the world, when you talk about evangelism, I know when we talk about evangelism, we talk about the call and being a call and sharing Christ. I do think sometimes when we talk about evangelism, we miss the other side of it, which is not just for us to talk about our experience, but also to shut up and listen to God about what God has for us and to learn from others as well. Evangelism sometimes seems this one-way thing. And sometimes there's a power dynamic there of God has spoken to me or given me some knowledge that you may have that I need to pass on to you. But I think today in mission, we've learned so much for the many of us who've been engaged in mission in this room, and there are many, that it changes your life in such a profound way. And it transcends just a moment because you learn so much from the people you're serving with. And so I think when we talk about evangelism, mission, I hope we remember it's a two-way street as well. We can learn so much more than we can teach, and we can receive much more than we give often as well. And so evangelistic temperature, I think, not only should we share Christ and offer Christ in those ways, but also we should listen to those and hear others' experience as well to give them a chance to impact our lives.
That's great. I'm really interested in hearing also, Matt, how your work intersects with another initiative that's very important to us here in North Alabama, and that is dismantling racism. How do you see those two initiatives and groups intersecting?
Well, and as Paulette said in her presentation, I think when we do mission well, we really work to tear down those barriers that we had built before. And it really doesn't matter what barriers we build as humanity, whether it's over race or country or language or whatever. God calls us to be active in knocking those boundaries down and to bridging the gap. And so one way that the UMVIM SEJ office is looking to capitalize on that and really to engage in the issue of racism and moving beyond it is we will be working, and this was just something that came from our board a couple weeks ago, we will be working with the Committee on Religion and Race to see if we can create a pilot program to help leaders of churches that may be African American or others be engaged in mission and perhaps providing scholarships for those and training new leaders in those churches where minorities are represented.
Great.
Yep.
Great. And that is also at the heart of the mission of the North Alabama Conference, to discover,
Absolutely.
develop, and deploy passionate spiritual leaders.
Absolutely.
So what is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now with UMVIM?
So I think just in terms of the future of the church, we're getting a lot of questions about, can only United Methodists be engaged through UMVIM? We have a long history of working across denominations, and our doors are open to anybody who wishes to get out of the doors of their church and to serve in mission. I think COVID was a huge challenge for us because so much of our work is bound up in travel and going to other places. And so when COVID came, it really hit us hard, not only financially, but just when you talk about momentum, it just suddenly dropped off. However, with that challenge, we had time to evaluate our resources, see what we were doing wrong, what we were doing right, and to develop new resources. And many of these are free, and you can go to umvim.org. We have some great training videos, some great resources there for your church and your church leaders to talk to your congregations about what mission means, what it means to be involved in mission, and why it's important to be engaged in mission, and to talk about those really hard questions about how do we do mission and do mission well.
So those are challenges. What's your greatest hope? What do you see that is causing your hope barometer to skyrocket?
Well, mission is really bigger than all of us. And so even in this time of uncertainty and folks, leaving or joining and a lot being in limbo, mission really has a profound a way of bringing us together despite our differences. And I know many of us in the room, how many folks have been on a mission team here, whether it's just the example of serving with people who may be like you, but also different than you. They may think differently about these tough issues as you. But once you're there engaging with them, engaging in that common practice of being the hands and feet of Christ, it really just has this way of breaking down those barriers and bringing people together despite our differences. So that is why I'm really hopeful that even in this time of uncertainty, that mission could be one of those things that brings us back together despite our differences.
That's great. So here's another question. As you look at this group of people and you see laity and clergy, some of the clergy are in extension ministries. Most of them are clergy serving in a local church. What would you say to each of them about how they can be in partnership with you and with UMVIM?
So being a clergy person, having served churches, I know pastors are asked to do a lot. And there's so much to worry about on a week-to-week basis, not only preparing a sermon, but for pastors who really take their job seriously. And when I was a pastor, and still am, but when I was serving churches, I worried about the font and the bulletin. There's really just so much to want to get right. And I think for clergy, we have this tendency of, before we go and serve outside the doors of our church, we want to make sure that everything's right on the inside, right? That we have enough members, that worship is going well. We have all these committees in place. And only after we feel those things inside have been worked out do we venture outside the doors in mission or in outreach. But I think sometimes going out of the doors of your church without having to figure out all that stuff can be a great way to bring more people in your doors. You don't have to have everything right on the inside. Just take the bold step, get outside the doors of your church, go serve at the local homeless shelter or food pantry, or if you really want to be transformed in profound ways, look on our website for the many projects that are there and get engaged. Growing a church is hard. It really is. And sometimes we try all these things and we really hit our heads against the wall because they're not working, but just taking that leap and getting outside the doors of our church in service and being the hands and feet of Christ really is a great way for folks to see your church in action in the world and to want to be a part of that as well.
So what is your favorite computer font?
Comic Sans is a great one, yeah. Yeah, well, I do still worry about the fonts on our publications, but sometimes I get a little overboard, and I have some great folks around me who tell me to calm down about the fonts and just let's do the work we're supposed to do.
Those people around you can make a big difference,
Absolutely.
can't they?
Yep.
Yes, yes. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Well, and just to repeat what I said earlier, if you want to be engaged in mission, and if you really want to just check it out and dip your toe in the water, go to umvim.org. There are free resources there to help your church talk about mission. If you're looking at taking your first mission journey in a long time, there's a free handbook there for you to download, as well as some great videos. So check it out. And if you have any questions at all, big or small, please let us know. We want to do whatever we can to help you get out of the doors of your church, whether that's in your community, in Alabama, or halfway around the world. We want to see you out there and engaged in mission.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
and
Bishop.
we are so grateful for you and your ministry. Wouldn't it be great if this annual conference showed the kind of support, and both in numbers and in finances, to lead the Southeast in terms of work related to VIM?
That'd be a great challenge, and I hope you meet it.
Okay, you'd be
Thank you.
ready to receive it, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Matt.